Good morning. I'm Dr. Laverne Lewis, TriMet's board president. Welcome to our board meeting this morning, October 23rd, 2024. We are gathered again at our one main place in our new TriMet boardroom for this board meeting. We are also live streaming the meeting on YouTube. All members are present for our meeting. This includes our two newest board members, J.T. Flowers and Aaron Graham, who we will acknowledge in a short bit. But thank you for being with us today. We're going to proceed with our public forum for those who are present and have signed up to testify. Members of the public who wish to provide testimony but could not be here may join us virtually after we have heard from those who are present who have signed up to testify. For all of those offering testimony, please direct your comments to TriMet and our transit-related services rather than other topics. We also ask that comments be limited to 3 minutes. You will note that there will be a timer indicator to help you comply with this request, and we ask that you respect the time. If you are unable to limit your comments to 3 minutes, you may provide additional comments in writing. TriMet staff will provide an email address for you to send your comments to the board. We welcome those. Now I will call up to the testimony table. I believe we have one person this morning. Please come forward. I'd like to invite Anush Furahar.
Yes. Okay. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
I believe 5 of the board members got a copy of this, and I have extra one if each one of you did not get it.
I'll pass it out after.
Oh.
Yeah.
Thank you. I had a lifetime experience of helping, and about a few months ago, accidentally I met Honorable General Manager Sam, and then I was thinking about helping TriMet. Right now, it's a 20-year-old technology that will allow us to build robots that we can design the schematics of it so that it will create the next generation of buses and trains, and it will actually do a lot more. And it is a straightforward project to make it happen. Because of what I've done in the past in terms of saving lives in Gulf War, Congress and the Pentagon respect and listen to my proposals in terms of suggestions of additional federal grants. After we get that, then we can simply continue with the process, except that we don't have to just stop it at helping Oregon in terms of trains, in terms of housing, in terms of everything else. It can actually become global. And we just need to promote it. And right now, my name is Anush Furahar, phone number 503-858-9025. so that later on, in case if one of you want to contact me or if the local news want to contact me in order to spread the word. And the second part is that the liabilities that TriMet has because of the resolutions that have been passed, I will gladly this afternoon have 15-minute meeting if you permit, so that I can tell you about the details of it, that how to prevent personal liabilities. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for your testimony. At this time, we do have nope, they're not. We did have 2 testimonies for virtual. No, they are not present. Well, with no other members from the public signed up for public testimony at this time, I will close the public forum. At this time, we will have our formal business meeting. And excitingly, first I would like to introduce our 2 new board members, Aaron Graham and J.T. Flowers, who were recently appointed by Governor Kotek and confirmed by the Oregon Senate, effective October 1st. They've been here a while, at least a couple of weeks. First, I'd like to introduce Aaron Graham. Aaron Graham replaces retired director and former board president Ozzie Gonzalez and represents TriMet District 2, which encompasses neighborhoods in the Northwest, South, Southwest, and downtown Portland. She will also complete Director Gonzalez's term, which expires next May 31st of 2026. Aaron currently serves as president and CEO of the Oregon Museum of Science and Industry, as we know, OMSI, including chief operator officer for more than a decade. Aaron holds a Bachelor of Arts degree from the University of Oregon, plus a law degree and MBA from the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and is a member of the American Leadership Forum of Oregon and the International Women's Forum. Recently, Aaron stated that, and I quote, "Investing in upgrading and electrifying public transportation and increasing riderships are critical to reaching our climate goals and reducing impact on human health." I think we would all agree we welcome Aaron. Okay. Next, I'd like to introduce J.T. Flowers. J.T. Flowers replaces retired director Keith Edwards and represents TriMet District 5, which includes neighborhoods north and northeast Portland. J.T. will also complete Director Edwards' terms, which runs through May 25th, 2026. J.T. is an inner North Portland native and currently serves as the Director of Governmental Affairs and Communication at Albina Vision Trust, focusing on economic development and generational wealth building for Black and historically displaced Portlanders. He also is on the board of William and Russell Project, which aims to provide affordable housing and business opportunities in North Portland, especially for families also displaced by development in that area. JT also previously worked for Congressman Earl Blumenauer and as a consultant for the nonprofit Campaign Zero, and also as a public lands coordinator for a conservation nonprofit. He is a graduate of Yale University, a Rhodes Scholar, a Truman Scholar, and has a master's degree in U.S. history and music performance from Oxford. JT says, and I quote, "Transit is inherently a question of equity." and that he is interested in working creatively to leverage expansion and fleet electrification as a generational workforce development opportunity for the working class and underrepresented Oregonians. Please help me welcome J.T. Flowers. Real exciting among the board members here. We have full team, and we're very excited to go forward with new members, regular members, old members like myself. Okay. So now we will, and Kathy too. Okay. We will now begin board report section of our business meeting. I will begin by making the following out-of-cycle appointments to our board committees. I've had a lot of questions from board members. What committee am I staying? These appointments are out of cycle because board member committee assignments normally are for 2 years and run parallel with the election cycle of board officers. However, we've had some committee appointments that will be necessary due to the recent retirement of our 2 board members, out-of-cycle election and the resulting of reassignment of current committee board members. First, I am appointing new board member Aaron Graham as board representative to the Committee on Accessible Transportation, also known as CAT. Okay. Aaron will be replacing retired Director Edwards on CAT. Second, J.T. Flowers will serve as board representative to the Metro Policy Advisory Committee, also known as MPAC. J.T. will replace Director Kim on MPAC. Director Thomas Kim has joined Finance and Audit Committee, F&A, where he will replace retired Director Gonzalez. In addition, due to the departure of Director Edwards, I am also appointing Director Kim as one of the trustees for the ATU TriMet Pension Trust. Finally, I am establishing a new ad hoc land use committee consisting of 2 board members and several TriMet staff in order to address issues relating to 2 proposed annexations in new territory for the TriMet district. Local jurisdiction in Happy Valley and Beaverton Tigard areas have requested TriMet to begin the procedures to annex some territory in their district. Our board resolution number 94-1082 sets out those annexation procedures, which in this case includes the formation of a land use committee to oversee the process. The Land Use Committee will review the work of the team consisting of TriMet staff from the jurisdictions, their staff, and then those wishing to be annexed, and other interested members. This process may result in a recommendation to TriMet staff for annexation and the board's subsequent adoption of ordinances to annex 1 or more of these areas. I am appointing this morning Director Kathy Way and Director Robert Kellogg as the board representatives on the Land Use Committee. They will be joined on the committee by staff Alan Leto and Greg Skillman. All right, let's move on to our next board reports, for which we will start with CAT. At this time, I'll ask Eileen Turvey, Director of TriMet's Accessible Transportation Program, to provide a report for the recent CAT meeting.
Thank you, Dr. Lewis. Good morning, directors. Welcome to the new members. The committee and staff Jan Campbell, our chair, called the meeting to order at 9 a.m. The committee and staff participated in White Cane Safety Day in partnership with Portland International Airport and their accessibility committee. This day is an observance dedicated to visually impaired people, and the White Cane represents their remarkable achievements and symbolizes their independence. PDX also participates in the Sunflower Lanyard Hidden Disability Program, and there has been interest from CAT in participating in that program as well. We received general public comment from Ryan Skelton, former CAT member, and he really wanted to thank TriMet's amazing on-street customer support team at the Lloyd Center Max Stop, which has been really crowded in the afternoons with the Benson High School students there. He uses a mobility device and a service animal, and it can be difficult to get on the train, and our on-street team has really been instrumental in making sure that he makes the train each day, so he's grateful for their support. The LIFT subcommittee provided an update, and our September meeting updates were shared and discussed evaluating the successes of the subsidized fixed route pilot for Lyft riders, the Instacart pilot successes to date, and the Lyft Plus pilot with Uber. TriMet staff updates were provided, noting that CAT Chair Jan Campbell received yet another award in the year of Jan Campbell, receiving the Oregon Daily Journal of Commerce's Women of Vision Award. This recognition supports the women who are shaping the built environment with their technical skill, leadership, mentoring, community involvement, and the creation of opportunities for future generations of women in the industries. Once again, we're so proud of Jan's efforts to be a leader with CAT and her advocacy efforts related to accessible transportation. Updates were also provided on the grand opening of the Jan Campbell Transit Mobility Center on November 19th. You should have all received an invitation for that, 2:30 in the afternoon. We would look forward to seeing you there. And then at the Oregon Transit Association conference coming up later, well, next week, Mimi Bernal-Graves and I will be presenting WELL curriculum to help other transit providers throughout the state provide more accessible communication and content in their public outreach efforts. And we will also be partnering with TransDev, our service partner, to share innovations in paratransit with partners around the state. The committee went over their FY25 budget priorities, which include the Lyft operations budget, specifically including annual end-of-life replacements for 30 Lyft vehicles, adding tactile maps at transit centers, improving wayfinding and guided navigation as supported functions of the TriMet Trip Planner. They're also asking for increased security on the system with additional safety response team members throughout. Improving the cleanliness of bus and MAX vehicles and bus stops and shelters, ensuring that placement of garbage cans does not hinder access to and from vehicles, and supporting the research and development of a plan to evaluate the journey map of riders who are older adults and/or people with disabilities in accessing and utilizing public transit safely and efficiently. They would like particular focus placed on the experience and access for riders who are not eligible for ADA paratransit. Justin Rossman, who supports our team, shared the background and biographies of the two newest members, and we are delighted to welcome Director Graham to support our committee. And then TriMet staff Eric DeMitt shared an update on Vision 2030, and the committee is eager to support initiatives to grow ridership, grow accessibility of the system. That's it.
Oh, thank you, Eileen. And thank you to the members of CAT and their commitment to their meetings and providing us with input and information each month. I'm going to open to the board. Is there any questions for Eileen? Director Frisbee?
I'm just wondering if you considered a resolution creating the year of Jan Campbell. It certainly seems and I think that is something we might want to consider. Erin, you can, as our CAT liaison, you guys can work on that.
Thank you. Director Frisbee, seeing no other comments? Okay, thank you again. Next, I'd like to invite Director Kim to provide a report from the recent meeting with Metropolitan Policy Advisory Committee, MPAC.
Thank you, President Lewis. MPAC met in late September to make a final recommendation to Metro Council regarding the 2024 Urban Growth Management Decision. I, on behalf of TriMet, voiced concerns over the proposed low density of the Sherwood West Concept Plan and advocated for increasing the threshold to align with densities that support future transit viability. The motion, which recommended approval of Metro CEO staff report to expand the urban growth boundary into Sherwood West, was passed by MPAC. MPAC also passed 3 amendments for Metro Council consideration regarding a higher growth forecast used for staff modeling, a commitment by Metro to host an employment lands task force, and a commitment by Metro not to impose additional requirements on the Sherwood West concept plan. This recommendation concluded AMPEC's role and input on the urban growth management decision. Metro Council will have a first reading of the ordinance and public hearing on November 21, 2024, followed by a second reading and decision on December 5, 2024 to conclude the process. AMPEC will meet tonight to review the garbage and recycling system facilities plan, the Metro Future Vision Work Plan, and to hear an update on the Metro 2040 Planning and Development Grants Program. It has been my pleasure to represent TriMet on this committee. Today and on, our new TriMet board member, Director J.T. Flowers, will be TriMet's representative on the AMPAC, which we can attend together as a smoother handoff. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Kim. Open it to board members. Any comments, questions for Director Kim? Okay, seeing none, we'll ask Director Kim again to provide his report on the Finance and Audit Committee meeting this morning.
Of course. We started our meeting with external audit presentation for the fiscal year ended in June 30, 2024. This is the first year TriMet has prepared an annual comprehensive financial report, also known as an ACFR. Our external auditors from Aid Bailey presented the audited annual comprehensive financial report as well as required communication. Aid Bailey expressed an unmodified or clean opinion on TriMet's 2024 financial statements. Aid Bailey did not note any significant deficiencies or instances of non-compliance. Also, as part of this year's audit procedures, Aid Bailey focused efforts on procurement card transactions and off-cycle payroll adjustments. Aid Bailey did not note any exceptions in these areas. Overall, it was a very positive report, and I certainly appreciate Nancy and her team. Moving on to, and then we moved on to conversing about transit-oriented development, TOD. Specifically, the Hollywood Hub TriMet Phase 1 infrastructure project is nearing completion with core public access and right-of-way improvements underway. New stairs and ramp structure is planned to open at the end of this month. The project team is preparing for the site for construction turnover mid-November to Bridge Housing and contractor O'Neill Walsh Community Builders to construct 224 units of affordable housing for families and individuals in this flagship 12-story building. TriMet's TOD program is also investigating a potential development opportunity for a portion of the Willow Creek Transit Center in Washington County. Lastly, we discussed STIF. We learned some highlights about the most recent State Transportation Improvement Fund STIF revenue projections and utilization today. Specifically, ODOT's most recent estimates for the current biennium and the coming biennium has revenue decreasing from the original projections. Relatedly, now that the federal stimulus funding has also been fully utilized, TriMet will be utilizing STIF funding, previously used for one-time projects, towards service to preserve the TriMet system. And we will be hearing a full briefing later this morning today from Tom Mills and Debbie Gregg on STIF, revenue projections and utilization. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Kim. Any questions, comments from any of the board members? Okay, thank you. Excellent reports this morning. At this time, we will turn our attention to the General Manager for his monthly report. General Manager Dessou.
Thank you, President. Good morning, board members, new board members that's joining us. Good morning. Our community partners that are out with us, the public, and TriMet staff, thank you all for being here with us today. In my report this morning, I will provide some timely information on our September ridership, an update on a bus improvement that was made in August that's attracted more riders. We will unveil a major improvement to our website, TriMet.org, that's been in years in the making and is a key achievement both in our ridership and also our diversity efforts. And then I'll share about my testimony before the state's Joint Committee on Transportation, as the committee is working really to set priorities for a possible 2025 transportation package. And then I'll provide some insight from the annual American Public Transportation Association Transit Conference. And during that conference, TriMet's innovation in its finest received a top award, which we will show you why and really talk to you about that. And then I'll end with an exciting, absolutely exciting title TriMet recently received from Forbes magazine. So I'll talk a little bit about that. So let's start with ridership for a moment. It continued to trend upward in September 2024 with a 3.8% increase over September 2023. TriMet provided about 5.4 million trips in September, and that equates to about 1.3 million weekly trips that took place. The largest gains are occurring on our frequent service bus lines, and just to let everybody know, we have 17 of those frequent service bus lines with a 11.5% increase weekday ridership on those lines over last September. So things are really going well with the frequent bus lines. We've also added more buses on 4 of our frequent bus service lines in February of 2024. And you may remember earlier in the year, in the spring, that we added the service on these 4 lines on our frequent bus lines as part of our Forward Together plan. As we roll out more bus service improvements, including 2 new bus lines with route extensions on 4 of those lines to reach new areas. And we made schedule adjustments to better serve the riders in late August, in addition to our MAX Red Line expansion that we had. Also, on the heels of positive feedback that I shared last month at our board meeting, I would like to highlight growth on one of the bus lines that saw changes. It's still very early right now that I want to tell you, as the changes just went into effect 8 weeks ago. But since then, we've seen an additional 90 passengers, additional 90 rides per day on the line 76, which is Hall Greenberg. That line now provides daily services between Beaverton Transit Center and Oregon Transit Center. Additional analysis right now it's going to tell us where these new rides are occurring as we move forward, whether it's on the extension or whether it's somewhere along the line as we move forward there. The line 76 provides regular, reliable bus service and a connection between Washington County and Clackamas County. So this is the first time that we've connected both counties together, and we're really happy to see the early data that's showing that it's fulfilling a need for those communities to be connected. So next, as we work to bring more people on board, TriMet's #1 marketing and customer communication tool is our website. So as JC Vanetta just came up, I'd like to invite him, along with our digital communications manager, David Whipple, who's coming up, to really give us a glimpse at what exciting new improvements to TriMet.org that's been in the works over the last couple of years. Again, this brings together aspirations to increase ridership and our dedication to expand our diversity and inclusion efforts with our community. And that was the culmination of a huge multi-division, multi-department effort. So JC, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Sam. President Lewis, members of the board, we do have some great news as we move forward with our digital communications, as we expand access to transit, and really is us connecting to the community. As you know, we've been working to make our services more welcoming, accessible, and useful for everyone, including those whose primary language is not English. To that end, we've been working in collaboration with our friends in IT and John Gardner's group, IDEA, to make TriMet.org available in other languages. Earlier this month, you may have noticed we added a language selector button on TriMet.org that lets you choose your preferred language. That button lets you access our most popular languages, from our trip planner to maps and schedules, in Spanish, Vietnamese, Korean, Russian, and Chinese. We know that 9% of the Tri-County population speaks a language other than English at home, and these are the top 5 languages spoken in our service area. We want to make sure that folks with limited English proficiency have the same access to our website that our English-speaking customers do. It's all about delivering an equitable experience for all of our riders. We also want everyone to get on board and take TriMet, so we're hoping that with more in-language content, we can reach and engage more people in our community. And I have Dave Whipple, our Manager of Digital Communications, here to take a test drive.
Thanks, JC. Good morning, President Lewis and board. I'm Dave Whipple, Digital Communications Manager. For a little context first, we have quite a few people coming to TriMet.org every month to get a trip planner itinerary, to get real-time service information for their buses and trains, route maps and schedules, service alerts, and pretty much everything that helps people get from point A to point B. In September, in fact, we had 300,000 active monthly users on TriMet.org, so it gets used a lot. And as JC mentioned, for our limited English proficient customers, we really want to provide a more equitable experience on our website, one that is on par with what we provide for our English speakers. And with the addition of this new language selector, we are much closer to that goal, and this is a really big step forward for us. So let's take a look. Thanks, Felicia, for driving. Here we have the homepage of TriMet.org. You'll notice in the upper right corner near the main menu, we've added a new language selector button. The button is labeled language in English alongside a universal symbol for language or translation. When you click or tap that button, you'll see a drop down that lets you choose which language you want. And the first 5 languages in the list are the primary languages we're focusing on right now, representing the top languages spoken in our service area. Again, that is Spanish, Vietnamese, Korean, Russian, and simplified Chinese. When you click or tap one of these first 5 languages, you'll immediately see the text on the site change into that language. And a brief notification will pop up at the bottom of the screen greeting you and letting you know that your language has changed in your language. If you select any of the other languages farther down on the list, it will take you to a single page with some general TriMet information in that language. In addition to our homepage trip tools, we've added the language selector to many content pages on our site, so riders will have the ability to access any translated page in their language of choice. As an example, here's the fares page in Spanish. And then we'll change that to Vietnamese, and you'll see the text changes to Vietnamese. The language selector uses new software that helps us automate and streamline the translation and the publishing of large quantities of content. And the software helps us keep all of this content synchronized over time when something changes, which is something we couldn't do before. One thing to note, not all of our content has been translated just yet. In this first phase, we identified the most popular web pages to start, and we plan to add more as we go. But we're really excited to have the infrastructure in place to publish more and better multilingual content. I definitely want to thank our partners in IT for helping bring the language selector to life, and to Community Affairs and IDEA teams for guiding and coordinating all of the translation work. It was really a big team effort. And that wraps up our demo. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
I just want to add on to, thank you, Felicia, for driving. And I just want to add to our website continues, the work that we do is amazing. We are on the cutting edge with our website. And again, a huge thanks to our folks in IT and IDEA for helping us make these improvements. I will note that Dave gets numerous phone calls each month asking who developed our website. And when we say it's done internally, they all are shocked, because we put, this is our #1 marketing tool, and we put the resources behind it because it means so much to this agency. Excuse me. Thank you.
I see 2 questions from board members, so can you hold for a moment? First, JT, Director.
Is this on? Yeah. JC, Dave, thank both of y'all so much. This is beautiful. I mean, incredible work that you guys have done here. Just a couple quick questions. I was going through the Delegated Authority report and saw that we had a piggyback contract for written translation with Linguava interpreters. Are they the folks who are providing the interpretation services for the website or the software that's associated with it, or are those separate functions that are broken down into separate contracts?
Those are 2 separate functions right now. The vendor that provides the platform for translating and publishing the content does provide an initial AI and initial human review translations, but our IDEA team is also coordinating a second review step for those translations through Linguava at this time.
Okay, copy. And that leads me to the second question I have, which is, I guess maybe it's better directed to the IDEA team, but I'm interested in how we're thinking about contracting around interpretation services, particularly in ways that might be able to center minority-owned businesses, folks who are, translating languages that they're native speakers of, and also who are owners of the companies that are providing those services. It's not necessarily something that we have to answer right now, just something I'm interested in learning more about. So thank you guys for the demo. It's really fantastic, super excited about the way the website looks. Couldn't be more pleased with it.
Yeah, and I'll quick and John can answer too offline, but I would just note that we use a lot of community-based organizations. We do not pretend that we know everything. We rely on the community organizations to help us out. So you are seeing that, and we are doing that actively now.
Thank you. Director Wei.
Hello, thank you so much. Yeah, this is very exciting. I was just on the website earlier as well, just poking around. And so thank you for this work, and thank you that, you are bringing, experts, people in the community, folks that we have relationships with in different community-based organizations. So my question is really around that. Sometimes we can take a look at these, and at times community members can say, oh, that just looks like a Google Translate, like I'm not going to trust this, or especially with something very important as getting from point A to point B. So how are we building trust in the community that this isn't just like you click on this button and it's like a Google Translate thing, which no shade to Google Translate, but let's face it, I've worked with lots of different communities, and they're like, we have no idea what this is translating. So how do we reassure and build that trust in the communities, and also continue to really have a smooth rollout of this as folks are getting used to the website? So that's a lot of questions. And then just my part 2 is, can folks use this on their mobile, and is that information also translated as well?
Yeah, I'll start with your first question. Our IDEA team, in particular Christina Barboza, our language access plan manager, is assembling a network, if you will, of these community groups and partners and internal native speakers to help supplement what the vendor brings us. And the vendor brings us a combination of AI or machine learning translation to start, with a human review to follow. That's typically our formula. But we do have control over whatever workflow works best for the type of content. AI might work really well for something in real time that isn't that important. If there's sensitive topics or something that really needs a human reviewer, we can make sure that content gets a human reviewer. And then, as I mentioned, there's a kind of a second review step by another human, right now at least, as we get this off the ground. So we're kind of going in baby steps, building this network and building workflows and processes that will help establish that confidence.
And I would also note, too, we are working closely with the community-based organizations. And if you remember earlier this year, we talked about our record outreach, and it quite literally is listening to the community. And so as we roll this out, if we hear that something might not jive or does not work, we will listen, we'll make the changes appropriately. And I think that us working with the community throughout all of this is helping to build that trust. Now, as we roll it out and we make changes, we definitely want to make sure they know. And so that'll also be part of our outreach and engagement.
Thank you.
And to your last point to your question, it is available on your phone.
I think just one other comment I'd make is it's wonderful that we're engaging community and we continue to, get their really important feedback and their comments. But one other thing that I want to just tack on to is how are we respecting their time via whether it's us, giving them dinner, right, or some stipends, or providing childcare. So I just want to continue to remind us that as we're continuing to engage with community, that many of these folks are also wearing multiple hats and running nonprofits and running around and doing other really important work for various things. So and I know that we respect their time and energy, but just wanted to keep that in the forefront as we're asking folks of their time and resources.
Definitely.
Oh, sorry, I looked the wrong direction.
We threw you.
Director Frisbee, and then Director Flowers.
Thank you. I just wanted to say congratulations. This represents a large body of work, so thank you, and it's exciting to see it. And I really appreciate that it is not just the landing page that we went through and we did the in-depth work so that folks can actually navigate the whole website. To that end, I don't want to be a wet blanket in any way, but I did notice that the security form is in English even when I change the language, and I will just say I hope that is adjusted because I know other than trip planning, that is often one of the reasons folks are visiting our website, and so I know that's hard because there are other issues involved.
Director Frisbee, yes, that is on our roadmap for sure. As I mentioned earlier, not all of our content is translated yet, and that is due in part because of different services or vendors we might use for different parts of the website. And we're working through what's needed to be able to make the entirety of the website translatable.
That makes sense, and I appreciate that. Just figured I'd flag it. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Frisbee. Director Flowers?
Thank you. Yeah, my last point is just to tack on to Director Way's point. As we're thinking about ways to incorporate community in the process of review, you mentioned that there are several elements of this process that actually do require human review. Could be interesting for us to think creatively about ways that we actually make sure that the people reviewing the content that's being translated are not just speakers of the languages that we're translating into, but are also active writers of our systems and members of the communities that rely on our systems to get from point A to point B. So just some ideas that we can start to ruminate on a little bit.
Good point. Thank you.
Okay, seeing other comments, I do have an ending comment. It was something Director Way had pointed out, and I think Director Flowers as well, is how do we give acknowledgement to our communities that are providing us with this service? It might be just a thought that on our trains and buses, we have the advertisement areas and spaces, but to acknowledge the translation services or who's providing them. I was trying to rack my brain of where we can give space and raise them up for their work. This is critical. When we look at the demographics of our writers, this is very critical. And hopefully in part two, many of the forms, especially security and any of the others. And I'm not sure, I think this would be a question for Director Andrew on the new phones that are going in and if there's translation services for that. That's definitely part of security. But thank you again. Okay, thank you for the work, and we look forward to part two. and include Director and John over there. Thanks. I'm returning to General Manager.
Thanks, Dave and JC. Really appreciate that. Board, 2 weeks ago, I gave testimony and talked a little bit about what we are improving here with our customer service, just as well as our safety and security experience with the Joint Committee on Transportation in Happy Valley. I went down, had a conversation. We talked at a round table about what the needs are within our transit agency and then within the 77 transit agencies around the state of Oregon. So there were several elected leaders that was there. I participated with the round table, just as well as followed up with public testimony with them as well. The committee just finished up a tour around the state to really try to understand the transportation problems that the state of Oregon is facing. And I really want to commend the committee for their 12 meetings that they had around the state, 3 at which TriMet we spoke at, to recognize really the challenges that we are faced with. Transit access is essential to ensuring transit equity for all Oregonians, and transit providers throughout the state, including TriMet. We all need more funding, and that was one of the main conversations that we had, and also to maintain and improve services to the public was another comment that we talked about. The STIF, or the State Transportation Improvement Fund, has been an invaluable resource for Oregon Transit around our state. And it's really helped us to preserve and expand service, reduce our carbon emissions, and also offer low-income fare programs to our riders. So really, really satisfied and excited about that. However, though, there's a lot of work ahead, and we stand ready to support a package that will enhance the accessibility and equity of Oregon's transportation systems. So I wanted to just kind of bring that to your attention and talk a little bit about that. Next, I really want to talk a little bit. Earlier this month, President Lewis and myself and some of the leadership team joined me at the American Public Transportation Transform Conference in Anaheim, California. And this was an invaluable opportunity to engage with other transit leaders and peers across the nation, to include my colleague that's in the audience here with us. At every conversation I had during the sessions, just reaffirmed to me and to President Lewis and others that went that TriMet is just not participants on the national level. And in the transit industry, we are really helping to shape its future here at things that we are doing here. And the conference really provided a fire hose of information, including best practices and new ideas in the transit industry, much as which we are leading on here in our region and also across the country. And it was just a strong validation that the initiatives that we are undertaking align with where transit industry needs to go. Whether we're talking about sustainability, innovation, or the customer experience, it was clear that our agency was positioned as a leader. So it's really good, advancing solutions and just not reacting, but really being a forward thinker in our lane. So speaking of which, why don't you come on up, Eileen, as I look over at you. I'm thrilled to share about our 2024 APTA Innovation Award that we received. TriMet received the award for our Lyft Instacart program that was the brainchild of our Director of Accessible Transportation Programs, Eileen Collins-Turvey. What we would like to do before I let Eileen talk a little bit about the award is let's play the video that aired at the APTA Transform conference.
The feedback that we got from customers was really heart-wrenching to hear how many struggles people had with mobility impairments and visual impairments and how it was consuming their life to try and get groceries. And we feel like it's our job to help remove those barriers and Instacart became the path that we could remove those barriers. We did some focus group work with our Committee on Accessible Transportation, what a future-looking program would look like, that it had to be able to serve EBT recipients, and that's what we found with Instacart. So we will send you a gift membership. We send them a list of frequently asked questions to help them understand how to order their groceries, what that customer service channel looks like. Everything just sort of fell into line with Instacart being that sweet spot with 55 retailers in our community. So we included those stores also in our service delivery options so that people who have service animals could get the food that they needed for their animals. And we just want our customers to be able to find that happy weekend where they had the choice if they wanted to stay home, order groceries online, and then purchase exactly what they wanted and have it delivered. And then they could get groceries delivered one time a month as opposed to taking 3 or 4 trips on Lyft to get the same number of groceries. And so that's what we heard across the board, how liberating it was to be able to choose. But I either want to go out and experience the grocery store, or I want to stay home because I'm not feeling well and I have a headache and I'm just having a rough day. I just want to have the freedom to choose, and that's what our riders have now. We really want to thank APTA for honoring TriMet with the 2024 Innovation Award. It's an honor to be recognized by an organization like APTA for innovative work, and we're thrilled to be here today.
I just want to share my gratitude to Eileen and her team. So let's. She's a very vital member of our team, our leadership team as well. She leads with her heart in everything she does, and she always keeps those who are most dependent on our services at the forefront of all she does. And this Lyft Instacart pilot has shifted to a full program benefiting all of our Lyft customers as well as our agencies because of you. And I'll say this to the board. We were at a conference with about 4,000, 5,000 people there, quite a few people. Not only with the program, Eileen spoke on the national stage, leading our industry about what we're doing here in Portland, Oregon. And I want to just say to you, I really appreciate it. I can't tell you enough. I had so many leaders from different agencies come up and just congratulate TriMet on your behalf. So with that, please share your thoughts on this.
Well, thank you, Sam. You know, it's rare that we really get to think what we learned a new term outside of the bus. And so often in our programs, we're really mired to how we've always done things and how we are a transit provider who picks up people at point A and we deliver them to point B. And I think we found in our program, I have a fantastic team who really look outside the bus and say, if we are going to be a mobility provider, how do we connect our customers to services and services to our customers and be agnostic about the mode? While we're trying to grow ridership with the Vision 2030 aims, growing ridership in paratransit when it's not necessarily the best mode for riders, when it costs us $75 per trip each way. If there's a better way that people who are immune compromised, who have limited mobility, have limited stamina, can stay home and get their groceries delivered and have a higher quality of life, turn those their funds around to take recreational trips, go have lunch with a friend, really focus in on those social determinants of health that keep people connected to their communities. We wanted to be an avenue for that. And as a byproduct, we found something that everybody wins. Instacart partners are driving zero and no or low emission vehicles. So while we can't get those vehicles in our fleet, we can partner with a provider who 70% of their fleet is hybrid or electric. They're shopping for multiple customers at one time, getting that same shared ride that our customers receive. And we're employing a segment of the community that's made a decision about wanting to work differently than we did pre-COVID. So that's exciting. Our customers love it. They're saying things like, I have serious health conditions and using grocery delivery helps me have the physical energy to do other things I need to do and reduces my risk of getting sick too. I feel a lot more safe and secure knowing I can get food no matter how sick I am. Very grateful for this program. And then another writer said, I like how diverse Instacart is and how it allows me to reclaim lots of my time instead of scheduling rides to pick up food and scheduling a return trip. I am blind and grocery shopping became a full-time job for me. Now I have my life back. Thank you so much. You know, we noticed pre-COVID, our riders were spending about an hour and a half at grocery stores before their return pickup time. Post-COVID, when stores were having the same challenges we were to hire operators and mechanics, they had challenges hiring staff that were in those critical support functions. So our riders went from an hour and a half of dwell time at a store to get their groceries to 3.5 hours. So you add an hour, hour and a half of travel time, and it's a full day process just to get a couple of bags of groceries. So this really is returning quality of life to riders. The great and exciting thing for me, though, is that it's not just our community who's being impacted by this. I've heard from other agencies across the U.S. We created a Getting Started guide that had all of everything that we learned in this process. 1 through 15, how do you get started with an Instacart program at your property? We had that as a QR code available to all of the agencies who were at the Transform conference. I'll admit selfishly, it meant that I wasn't going to have to respond to it when I got home. But it also, while the iron was hot, they could get that information, be excited about it, and take it home, share it with other partners within their agencies. So as of now, I've had inquiries from over 50 agencies, and I've met with 14 of them about how they can get started. And 2 of those are LA Access and New York City Transit, who combined do 50,000 paratransit trips a day. We do about 3,000. So if those customers in those big cities that have considerable service area can begin to see some of those efficiencies, that means that across the country, sort of like best ball in golf, and we can just pick up where the most promising practices and move forward. So that was really. So we see this as a game changer around the country, and it was truly. And I wear out microphones. It was. With the group of leaders that we have, with the amazing transportation that I'd like to segue into a little introduction to them. They recognized that this would be the best way. Look at that, 3 times a charm. Between leadership and our Committee on Accessible Transportation, they recognized that this would be a way to connect our riders to a better life. That's what we do at TriMet. And so this is just sort of a normal day for us, but I'm really glad to have a medal anyway. So, so if I can jump really quickly into our Committee on Accessible Transportation, I'm excited that we'll be doing some board education sessions with you about ADA paratransit, how it works, what it is, why we do it. But for close to 40 years, TriMet's Committee on Accessible Transportation has been instrumental in providing guidance to the TriMet board and TriMet staff in an effort to increase the accessibility of transit service for older adults and people experiencing disabilities in our community. 1/3 of transit riders across the U.S. identify as a person with a disability, so we recognize this as a core component of our service. The CAT has consistently shown dedication and innovation in making public transportation more accessible. Their efforts have led to significant improvements in accessibility features such as elevator access, service increases and improvements, vehicle and technology upgrades, wayfinding, fare supports, and so much more. Their work not only benefits individuals with disabilities, but also contributes to overall universal design, creating a more equitable public transportation system for everyone. CAT has challenged the dominant worldview of the medical model of disability, and instead they have adopted a social model view. They have ensured that TriMet has included people experiencing disability in the design and planning process, understand evolving and progressive ADA standards, share best practices in transit accessibility and the concepts of universal design in transit. And with that, CAT has discovered more resources to improve and adapt projects for our whole community. They have worked with TriMet to improve our community engagement tools, methods, and techniques by making events more accessible and by trusting in and learning from the lived experience over assumptions. They have helped our staff learn tools to communicate more effectively with people who have an array of physical, mental, and cognitive disabilities, both congenital and acquired. CAT has also engaged people experiencing disability in auditing our built environment, moving away from research that did not include people who actually experienced disability. CAT's human-centered advocacy has left an indelible mark on TriMet staff who have grown their understanding, investment, and technical skills to meet our committee and customers where they are as a result. The collaboration and teamwork experienced by TriMet staff and CAT is the cornerstone of the continued successes we are experiencing as we work together to build the most accessible transportation in the country. As former board member Keith Edwards said at his farewell party, CAT is the heart of TriMet. It's no small feat to illuminate one's own lived experience and advocacy of a community, and to be able to share the challenges of that experience with a group of professionals so profoundly that they adapt their way of working and designing. CAT has done that at TriMet, and we are all benefiting from their advocacy. Some of the members are here today, some are online, and a couple couldn't make it, but I'd like to introduce you this morning to this amazing group of advocates. Virtually, we have Patricia Kepler, who's from District 1, Anna Deanna Johnson, also from District 1, Jan Campbell, our chair, just from District 2. Is Jan here? Yes. There's Jan. Stella Moore from District 2 as well. TJ Anderson could not be here, but TJ hails from District 3. Sky McLeod from District 4, and Sky is online. And Jason Jablo is from District 4 as well, and a veteran. I should add that we had the most expansive outreach for CAT recruitment this year, with over 27 members from all districts, from all walks of life, with all disabilities represented, an amazingly diverse group. And Justin Rossman from my team is here. Justin, can you wave your hand? A little higher, please. Thank you. Justin supports CAT and does a fantastic job. Richard Hunter is here from District 5. Claudia Robertson, our vice chair, is online, and she is also from District 5. Catherine Wood is not with us, but also from District 5. Mr. Dave Daly is right behind me, and he is from District 6. Trey Madden, I don't see Trey virtually, is also from District 6. And Franklin Uchida is from District 7, and he could not be with us today. So, is Franklin here? Franklin's here with his dog Cutie. Yes. So we really wanted you to be able to experience the names and faces of the folks who are doing this work, and we're grateful to have the opportunity to share them with you. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you, Eileen. That was wonderful, and just congratulations again for the award. I have to say, I cried the entire time you were on stage. I started crying again. It's just awesome. And it was overwhelming for many of the transit agencies. We were in the audience when you were getting your award, and when they saw the video, we could just hear comments of ooh and ah, and we have to do that when we get home. So congratulations, definitely innovation. Any comments, feedback from our board? Just smiles all around. They're just so overwhelmed with just the innovation. I think my mic has died on my outside voice. Pass it back to the gentleman.
I am wondering, it sounds like it's working a little bit for me, whether or not do our IT folks, do they need us to take a break to work through this, or are we good? Yes, just recommend President Lewis if we could take 5 minutes so that they can work through the microphone issues that we're dealing with.
Take 5. Get started. Everyone will go ahead and get started. Thank you. We'll go ahead and get started. Thank you.
More of that. More of that.
All right, board members, control yourselves there. All right. All right, we'll go ahead and continue our meeting. I'm going to turn our attention back to General Manager Dessou.
Thank you, President Lewis. Two things before I finalize. One, I want to acknowledge the presence, they've just left, the presence of ATU 757 President Bruce Hanson, he was here, and also ATU 757 Vice President Henry Beasley. And if you remember, Board, we just ratified our contract here just last month, but I wanted to acknowledge them and them being here at the board meeting. So this is a great time. Finally, President Lewis and members of the board, I am honored, absolute honored to share one of TriMet's recent titles as one of the top 5 best places to work in the state of Oregon. And based on Oregon employers or employees across the state, as well as a number of other people that we fared to be the top Oregon-based employer in the state under transportation and logistics. And this comes from our Forbes magazine listing. I am absolutely particularly touched because it was based on a survey of employees across the country. And this definitely reflects TriMet's dedication to our employees and our community. As often, I always say it takes a village here, and only successful because of all of our employees that are here. And want to just say to you that to be as one of the top agencies in our state, this is absolutely incredible. So with that, I'll say that this concludes my report for the board this morning.
Thank you, General Manager Dessou. Excellent report. Just a small announcement. In case we lose our audio and our mics, we will go old school with hand. There will be no break. Just stay in your seats and we will transition to old school hand mics. All right. Any questions, comments for the General Manager and his report from the board? I see Director Frisbee.
Thank you, President Lewis. Thank you, General Manager Dessou. I just wanted to echo back in the early part of your board comments, you highlighted that we've seen a 3.8% increase in ridership on the system overall, but an 11.5% increase on our frequent bus lines. And as we discuss STIF later today, I just want to take a moment and highlight how important that service increases are. Being able to provide frequent service. When we provide that frequent service, folks ride. And that's true for us. I see our partners at LTD in here today. I'm sure that is true for them. And our partners from across the region, many of whom are also here today. We need to be able to provide that frequent service for folks. And so as we head into the legislative session, I just think this is an important, yet another demonstration of how important that service is. And we need support from the state to provide that service to the folks in our district.
I appreciate you saying that. That was one of the comments that I made at the roundtable, is talking about frequent service and having people be able to walk out their homes and not have to look at a schedule, knowing that within the next 7 or 8 minutes, there will be a bus or train coming to that location. So I think it's critical for us as we continue towards Vision 2030 and also increasing our ridership and making sure that we touch all of our communities that we serve with frequent bus lines. So it's something on our agenda.
Okay, that concludes General Manager's report. Now let us turn to the consent agenda. Items appearing on the consent agenda are considered routine and may be approved by the board in one blanket motion. This morning, the consent agenda consists of approving the minutes from our last meeting of September 24th, 2024. Does any director wish to have any, anything from the agenda? I don't think we, other than our minutes, which we're not going to remove, okay? All right. Is there a motion to approve the item contained in the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion, and is there a second? Does anyone wish to comment before we vote? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. All right, we're going to turn to our regular agenda resolutions. First resolution before the board today is Resolution 24-1058, authorizing a contract with J.R. Ramos Enterprises for the Powell Garage Gantry Charging Infrastructure Project. Mr. General Manager, do you have any comments on this resolution?
President Lewis, members of the board, this project is part of the continuing improvements to the Powell Operations Facility to support our zero emissions bus fleet transition plan. The current vehicle charging capacity at Powell supports simultaneous charging for 24 vehicles. But as we look to bring on more zero emission buses in the future, we will need a significant increase in charging capacity. We cannot expand the physical size of Powell facility, so we are going to go up. For this first phase of the project, a section of galvanized steel gantry will be erected over 9 existing lanes where buses are parked. A gantry is an overhead bridge-like structure that supports equipment. In this case, the gantry will support 54 pantographs or overhead chargers. The chargers connect to the top of the bus like we have with our fast charger at the Sunset Transit Center. The Powell gantry just received NEPA, which is a NEPA clearance from the FTA, which means that the project meets the National Environmental Policy Act for federal funding. And last July, the board exempted this contract from a low bid requirement, and TriMet used an RFP to procure R.J. Ramos as the contractor for the project. If approved, the contract will be for a 13-month term for a maximum amount of $4.2 million, which includes a possible 15% change order authority. The budget for these services is included in TriMet's 5-year capital improvement plan and financial forecasts, and also will be presented to the board for final approval in annual budgets. R.J. Ramos is a diverse company with 22 employees, 41% represents minorities, and 36 identified as females. They are a certified disadvantaged business enterprise and a minority-owned business enterprise. Awarding this contract to R.J. Ramos is a demonstration on investing in our local small business community. Another great example of this partnership is with Raymore Construction. Their relationship working with TriMet dates back to the construction of the Max Yellow Line and our creation of a pathway that becomes a national model, which 2 years ago, or a year ago, we won the Service to Inclusion Model Award at the national level. And this model is for lifting up disadvantaged business enterprises. Ramos' team has been a partner for decades, and their ability to adapt and master tasks after tasks required by TriMet ultimately led to the award of the largest DBE contract in Oregon's history to Raymore for our Division Transit project. The team TriMet is excited to partner with R.J. Ramos on this important infrastructure project. There will be more like it in the future. Having a successful CMGC project on your resume is a great marketing win for a DBE contractor. And I should note that R.J. Ramos is already paying it forward. They have pledged to use COVID-certified small businesses. Subcontract is for 45% of the work, and I strongly recommend your approval. I would ask Jeff and the project managers, you guys go ahead and come up.
Okay, before we go to discussion, is there a motion to approve Resolution 24-1058?
So moved. Kim?
Is there a second?
Second?
It has been moved and second. Does anyone wish to comment before we vote? Okay. Director
Graham.
Graham. I was going to say Director Aaron. Works.
Thank you so much. I am just curious, being new to this process and how this works, to understand a little bit more about the pretty significant price reduction between the first initial bid and then the second, looks like negotiated best and final offer. And I'm just curious to know a little bit about that process, and was there a scope reduction, or they're just a fairly large drop?
So before you start, Director Graham, normally what I do, I bring the experts up.
Yeah.
And they will address it. So
Okay.
go ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you, General Manager. So the scope reduction reflected in the RFP is basically the removal of some electrical scope related to procurement of the owner-furnished gear, the chargers themselves, and some of the medium voltage distribution gear that will support the chargers eventually. But that timeline is pushed out beyond this contract term. So
Got it.
it was set aside.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Director Graham. Director Frisbee?
I want to thank both of you for coming up here today. You know that I had some discussion around this procurement with staff, and I appreciate everyone's responsiveness, particularly late in the workday hours. So appreciate you. And I think one of the things the most important thing and our most important job as a board is to ensure that TriMet is using its taxpayer dollars responsibly, that we can build the project for the cost that we anticipate, and that we are getting the firms who can do the work well, provide a good product to us and the taxpayers, and can do it for the amount and in the timeline that they have committed and we have asked. So that is sort of how I always view this. In the opportunities, and I appreciate TriMet's approach in this, we are using public dollars. We should try to maximize the public good in that moment. And that can take a lot of different paths, right? That means that we can use firms who do work in environmentally responsible ways to minimize the project's impact on the environment. That means we can use firms who pay their employees a living wage rather than just a minimum wage, or provide additional benefits to their employees. That supports the public good. That means we can support firms from minority-owned and women-owned owners in order to both increase the market and the number of potential contractors we have in the future, but also to address the institutional impacts of systemic racism on small business owners. So, I appreciate and support that. My primary and first question is always, do we feel confident that we can get the project done and that we can meet that need? And then my second question is, are we expanding the additional benefits to the public that can come through to this project? So I appreciate the approach and there's very specific and significant points allocated for diversity in employment and contracting and being a co-bid firm. My question to staff was always, do we feel confident that this contractor can deliver to this project? I've heard pretty clearly that we do, but if you have anything that you want to elaborate in that space, I would love to hear it.
Yeah, I think we're confident that they can deliver the job, and that it was all basically stems from the interview process. We felt that Ramos really performed well in the interview and addressed our direct questions about availability, safety, and other operations concerns that we might have at Powell Garage during construction. And that
that interview process was, you can see how the scores reflected a bit of a change and showed that strong response.
Director Kellogg?
Thank you. So I'm going to apologize in advance. This is going to be a little tedious. We approved this exemption in July before the bids came in and everything. So I'd like, Felicia, if you can pull that up. Got a couple of questions about the scoring criteria.
Okay.
So there should be number 7. This is page 49 of that packet. So I'll just read it if you can get it up there. So on the diversity piece, it says, use of this process will allow TriMet to consider the proposer's workforce diversity and its proposed utilization of small business and COVID certified subcontractors when selecting the contractor. When you look at the scoring criteria, it says COVID certified firm. So did they have to be a COVID certified firm to get the points, or use COVID subcontractors? Which one?
I believe it's just the COVID certified firm.
Okay, so not what was reflected in the exemption, the text.
I believe so, yes.
Okay. My second question relates to the availability and track record criteria. Is that a 50-50 weighting? Is it 80-20? How is that scored?
That's an aggregated score, availability and track record.
But those are two different things, right?
But the scoring line itself is 10 possible points for those two items, yes.
Right, so 5 for availability, 5 for track record.
I don't have a clear answer on that, but I believe that, yeah, the two together go address those concerns and that approach.
Okay, so Felicia, if we can go back to the July, there's an Exhibit A about 2 or 3 pages down. Those are the required findings for us to make the exemption. So, and I won't be terribly long on this, but there are 10 conditions, and as an attorney nerd, I went through and read all of them in the findings, and I can tell you, or you can read it yourself, about 80% of this is technical qualifications, it's availability, it's track record, and of course, price. Right. All right, so then when I come back to the scoring, I see 3 bidders qualified. The one that we selected throughout the process scored the lowest on qualifications of proposer, qualifications of staff, availability track record, work plan, and price.
That's correct.
Okay. So given that, and someone with better technical qualifications underbid the winner by $700,000, I just don't understand it logically. Can you help me understand it?
Well, I believe that the SEC process and the committee spent a lot of time discussing their track record and the work plan, and appreciated all the scoring categories. Yeah, do you have any comment on that?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Director Kellogg. My name is Jeff Rogers. I'm the interim Director of Procurement here, filling in for Les Spittler, who's been reassigned. The Institute for Government Procurement has a strong policy advocating for diversity in suppliers, and the reason is not particularly oriented to economic justice. It's really oriented to the long-term interests of a contracting agency. So we as an agency have a very significant long-term interest in our pool of potential offers being as big as possible. Every time we put out an RFP or a bid, we want as many proposers as possible. One of the ways that we do that is by systemically advantaging firms that have been systemically disadvantaged. That's what those points are there for. I think that your question about whether they can do the work is totally fair. I think that question has been answered. Other firms that proposed could have also done the work, but we see here an opportunity to invite a new contractor into TriMet, a contractor that is significantly using minority and women labor. and contractors. This to me looks like a success in terms of expanding the pool of potential offerers. We want as many bids every time as we can. I think I'm eager to see Ramos do the work. I'm eager for them to succeed, and I'm eager to see them propose again, because more competition is going to drive down costs long-term for TriMet on all of its solicitations. That's how I would respond, I think.
Okay, and I appreciate that. But part of the exemption, the justification for it, is it's not going to diminish competition. And if I'm one of the two bidders that lost here and was technically more qualified to do the work, and in one case at a lower price, how likely is it I'm going to come back and bid again when I know, I just don't have the qualities that are to get me across the finish line?
That's right, and I think that's fair. It's the nature of a best value solicitation, right? It's the reason we don't use low bid in this. If we use low bid, we may have wound up with a result that added to the challenge of the consolidation of suppliers. We don't want a situation where one or two big firms win all of our bids and all of our RFPs. That's a mistake for TriMet long term, because over time we will pay higher costs. I think what we're hearing from the project team is that all three of these contractors could do the work. They can complete the work effectively. In a best value solicitation like this, we get a contractor that can do the work and that expands our pool of potential offerers.
Well, and as Director Frisbee said, I just want to reiterate, our job up here is to be good stewards of taxpayer money, or this agency's money that comes from the taxpayers. And so when I see a situation like this where a more technically qualified firm would do it at a lower price, I have to just bring it up and make it an issue. I mean, I know Oregon law has these exemptions, and those are pretty specific in saying that, DEI and COVID can be a factor, but in this situation, they seem to be the factor. And I get a little worried about, putting too much weight on that, and how that looks in terms of quality, equity, so on and so forth.
Understood.
Excuse me, Director Flowers and then Director Kim.
Yeah, thank you so much. Really quickly, I think that, and correct me if I'm wrong in saying this, the interview process is meant to address exactly these types of concerns. Is that correct?
Director Flowers, the interview process is just like hiring an employee. We see proposals, that's like a cover letter and a resume. We're happy to get people in the room, learn what they're all about. That's what the interview process for. And in this case, the interview was significant in terms of the team's view of that contractor.
Exactly, and in a similar manner to a cover letter or a resume, I'm glad that you mentioned both of those very standard items are part of an application process. Would you also say that firms who don't historically have access to landing these types of RFPs, who have been historically disadvantaged, might be at a disadvantage in submitting in submitting something like a work plan for consideration in an RFP process?
I think that's exactly fair.
Okay, so again, back to the original question then, the interview is meant to iron out any potential concerns that might not be accurately reflected by the materials submitted as part of an application?
I think that's fair. Nathan, anything?
Yeah, that's fair.
Well, I would like to commend both of you for your work. I completely understand the concerns of the directors here. One thing that we must be really intentional about thinking about here is that this is not just a transit agency, right? We have a $1.9 billion annual budget. We contract out millions upon millions upon millions of dollars every year. And historically, that money has gone to a very concentrated number of folks. When we think about the work that is part of making this system or this agency run, it's so much deeper than just making sure that people can get from point A to point B. It's also about building capacity in historically disadvantaged communities so that next time around, through not just an RFP process, but through an interview process, through the rigorous work of going back and forth with the agency, a contractor like Ramos, hopefully, and I would, this is a question for you, would you expect that at the end of a process like this, they would be better suited to compete in an overall RFP process, to submit a stronger to submit a stronger work plan, to submit a stronger package prior to having those things ironed out in an interview process? Would that be an outcome that we'd be aiming towards?
Yeah, I believe that's the case for them, that this process will strengthen that approach in their business.
Okay. With that said, I thank the both of you for your work and also acknowledge the fiduciary duty that we have as stewards of taxpayer funds. I think what everybody said here is really important, but just wanted to highlight the importance of us also thinking about building capacity as we're lending out contracted dollars.
Thank you, Director Flowers. Director Kim?
Thank you. Just wanted to chime in the conversation here. I think we're headed towards something bigger and better. I think fiduciary duty, yes, but of course we're not in the business of second-guessing staff, of course. You know, but it is worthwhile. What Director Kellogg brought up is a great sort of discussion point, you know, to have not on this particular item, agenda item, but to have around procurement strategy, which would then be executed, of course, by Sam and his team. And I think back in July when we switched over from ITB to a little bit to RFP, you know, as our solicitation method, it gave us great flexibility, right? Because now we can choose a variety of criteria method, which are all outlined in the RFP, underlying RFP. And I'm sure in case of, you know, protest, I don't know if the protest period is already over, I'm sure Shelley's team has plenty of pieces to defend our award decision. So I'm not worried about that either. So, but then I think, you know, what we do need to discuss as a board is strategy. You know, great value, best value. What does that really mean to us, right? And we don't have to align on what that means to us. Maybe we can think more traditionally and think about dollar amounts and timelines. And then, or we can think about, you know, especially based on what DAS's report on COVID firms and award decisions, we can think about what role we play in this region when it comes to awarding jobs, bids, and projects. And I think once we align on that in terms of the strategy, then we will sort of minimize on any potential confusion or you know, heartaches from the policy level to the execution level, right? Because, you know, I've made comments in prior board meetings how I really personally enjoy not having to do ITB when we can and when we can afford to do that. But of course, in general, with the fiduciary duty in mind, of course, dollars matter, and in fact, that's the bottom line. We also need to think about that. So I think it's just a conversation. Maybe this upcoming or maybe the future board retreats we can discuss more. And I think it would be something crucial for us to come to some sort of an agreement or decision on, so that we're not having to hash the underlying values every time we have an ITV versus an RFP. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Kim. Oh. Director Flowers?
Yeah, thank you. I couldn't agree more, Director Kim. And I think maybe what it can also kick off on our end as a board is a conversation about the type of supports that we provide to communities, specifically disadvantaged contractors, through an RFP process, right? I think that's an important conversation for us to be having as part of this broader discussion.
General Manager?
Just very quickly, it's a great discussion. I want to say that coming up in our next board education session, which is the 18th through the 22nd, this is a subject that we as the board and staff we're going to be talking about in great detail.
Just a small comment. One of the highlights of APTA when myself and Directors Frisbee and Way attended was on Procurement 101. And so I thought that would be just an excellent education piece to bring back. And so General Manager pointed that out for the board. We'll be starting at the base and walking through. So we'll have an opportunity to have a really deep dive discussion with board members, and you two, more than likely, will be there for procurements. Any other discussion from the board or comments? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to move to the vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay, one nay. Motion carries. Okay. Thank you. Okay, we have resolution, our second, number 241059, authorizing a contract modification with Stacy Wybeck Incorporated to provide track maintenance services. General Manager, do you have any comments on this resolution?
President Lewis, members of the board, this resolution supports state of good repair investments to our system, especially with our MAX light rail system. TriMet has roughly 60 miles of MAX tracks that regularly require maintenance by specialized equipment that we do not own or operate. And there is a very limited pool of contractors with the special equipment and the skill necessary to perform track maintenance work. Now, I just mentioned Raymore just a few minutes ago, and they were one of two firms awarded the track maintenance services contract in August of 2023. Stacy Whitback was the other. Because Stacy Whitback is more experienced than Ramo in this particular field, its contract has been utilized more and has nearly been expended. One example for why that was urgent track work related to the summer heat that required $192,000 of contract modification. This was vital to restore normal operations on both our blue line and our red lines, and Stacy Whitback really came through for us and our riders. TriMet estimates an additional $3 million worth of mechanized track maintenance work that's needed over the next 2 years to address our MAX state of good repair and to keep the track infrastructure safe and reliable. Just to give you a little bit of insight, our blue line is approaching almost 40 years old. So that track update and switches needs to be there for the safety of our passengers and the people that ride the system. So the resolution before you this morning seeks a modification of the Stacy Whitback contract for $3 million, raising the total amount to nearly $4 million. Some of the work to be covered is rail welding, distributing ballast, and repairing or replacing at-grade rail crossing. So the amount is included in our FY25 maintenance budget. And Stacy Whitback has 865 employees. About 30% are minorities and 15% are females. And I recommend your approval.
Before we start discussion, is there a motion to approve Resolution 241059?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
It has been moved and second. Does any of directors have any comments before we vote? Director Kellogg?
Yeah, just a clarification. In the memo, it was talking about $192,000 were added to, quote, resolve the need for slow orders. What does that mean?
So in the summer months, when the heat came down, it actually bent the rails. So we had to slow the trains down until we could straighten the rail back out from that. So that's why the money was there.
I'm still learning the terminology. Second question is, we initially awarded 2 contracts, and you explained that Stacy Whitbeck had done more sophisticated work. Is there any reason why part of this additional $3 million wasn't given to Raymore?
I'm going to bring up our procurement personnel and also David.
Hi there, thank you. That's a great question. So Raymore has been working on this work as well. Their company is smaller, they have less resources and less specialized equipment, so both of these contractors are working on these things. Just like Sam mentioned, excuse me, we are at a point where Stacy Whitbeck's contract is almost out. Raymore's is on schedule.
Right, but what it's asking about is the additional $3 million. Is all that only work that the larger, more sophisticated contractor can do?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Director Kellogg. Any other questions, comments? Okay, seeing none, we'll move to the vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We have Resolution 3, 241060, authorizing a contract with Connect Point Incorporated for digital information displays, associated material, and related software. General Manager, do you have any comments on this resolution?
Thanks, President Lewis and members of the board. TriMet relies on digital information displays. Give me one sec here. Installed at our bus shelters, our bus and MAX platforms, our transit centers, and other facilities. And it provides riders with arrival information, service updates, and emergency alerts. These important notifications improve safety as well as the overall customer service experience when using our transit system. We have currently 679 digital information displays across the 533 square mile district that we operate in. And it's supported by a cloud-based content management system. This includes 363 e-paper displays at bus shelters, 316 LED displays at various platforms. The current $6 million Connect Point contract first authorized in October of 2019. It expires today. A new contract will allow TriMet to continue using a well-established, proven company with working knowledge of current installed and soon-to-be installed TriMet digital displays at transit centers, shared bus, MAX platforms, and bus shelters. And it will also allow for purchase of additional displays with ADA compliant text-to-speech devices, and then other improvements for accessibility and rider engagement. So Connect Point is proprietary technology. It's been tailored to meet TriMet's specific needs, and it's a sole source contract that's necessary to keep our system running smoothly and efficiently. This resolution also authorizes the sole source contract with Connect Point for $3 million through October of 2029. The cost of displays, our ADA text-to-speech devices, and other upgrades are budgeted as an element of the FY 2025 STIF, or State Transportation Improvement Fund, and also Federal Transit Administration grants. So looking at the diversity of Connect Point, they have 16-person workforce, 23% minority, 23% female, and I recommend your approval.
Okay, before we have discussion, before we have the motion, discussion, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. It has been moved and second. Does anyone wish from the board to comment? Director Way?
Thank you, President Lewis. I do have a couple of questions. First of all, I think this is a very timely contract since it's expiring today. So, we got to get this moving. Yeah, right. Good job on timing there, team. And so I think my just general question is translation and or interpretation. I was just very, again, impressed by all the website redesign and just the better accessibility accessibility to serve our diverse populations. And, obviously in our background, we continue to say that, right? Accurate, effective information to our diverse community of writers. I think a couple of months ago, I did hear about this project that was coming, and that was a question that I had also was, what are we doing to, again, help limited English proficient writers once they get into our, see, right, our platforms? Are they seeing some of their languages being reflected on the screens?
Thanks for that question, Director Y. That's something we are definitely looking into right now. So currently we have the service alerts in English, and so we're looking at for the initial language to start with Spanish. And then we're going to carry on with the other follow-on languages. One of the things that we are working with is in terms of our service alerts, that's where the translation would come from. So we have that software internally, so our internal developers would have to either redo the software or upgrade that software to have that capability. Now, one of the things that we do have is the ability to do customized text alerts or even banners that are basically in JPEG format. So we can actually create something and then go ahead and attach it and then assign it to any particular devices that we have in our system. So this is something that is in progress. They're currently with ConnectPoint. They're partnering with us to do that. We've had several enhancements, and this is one of the top enhancements that we have requested for development.
That's wonderful. Thank you. So if I was a writer, again, and I speak Mandarin or Cantonese, when would I expect to see this getting visible and rolled out on our system? I don't imagine it being overnight. Obviously, I understand with large IT, projects, redesigns, right? Like there's a phase where hopefully we maybe can do some pilot testing in some of the various, concentrations of communities that are more LEP, just as a suggestion or an idea if we're already sort of thinking about that. But as a writer, like when should we sort of start seeing, these new monitors going up and then like potentially like, wow, that's great. There's a service alert in, Russian, for example.
Yes, so with those, as in terms of like a rollout, we would have to start with Spanish first because it is the most common secondary language. I would assume it'd probably be within 2 years. Now, if we're going down to like Mandarin Chinese, then I think that's going to need a little bit more outreach because what we've noticed in terms of translations is that when you do put it in something like Google Translate, it doesn't come out clean, right, or clear. Something even in Spanish too, because some of the slang terminology or even some of the verbiage. So I would assume that it's going to be, we're targeting within 2 years. We want to get this right. And I think we're going to learn a lot from initially with the Hispanic Latino community first, and then we're going to get best practices that we can carry on to the other languages.
And I would also say, too, we have just scratched the surface with this, and I'll be very honest. But to your point, even how do we serve up service alerts on these screens in communities throughout our district that might be large populations? And that is possible. I think we have a lot of systems to put into place internally beforehand, and translation, as you've heard earlier, is key. And so I think that we have to get a lot of those pieces in place. But it is something that we are committed to and we want to do.
Thank you. Thank you. This is very exciting that we're refreshing or revamping this sort of entire system of hundreds of monitors and screens that we have. And, again, hopefully keeping, right, diversity and equity in all of the communities that we serve as the forefront. My final question is, so this contract that we're approving, I just want to clarify. So all the additional like language, translation, that kind of work, you were saying upgrades to the system. Are those things being included in this cost? Meaning we don't have to like go back and like, spend millions of dollars on additional translation and that kind of, is that right?
That is correct.
Okay.
All of it, any type of enhancements or functionalities, that's part of their support that they serve.
Great, awesome. Well, I just look forward to seeing this project roll out, and and hopefully maybe in the next year or so we can get some more continued developments around this. But thank you for your work.
Thank you, Director Kim. Any other? Wait, sorry. Names today. Others? Okay. I do have a question myself. The Connect Point, I notice, is proprietary, and it's due today. So that kind of puts the pressure on. So we have two. But can you share a little bit about the company itself? Have they done this work before with other transit agencies? What's their track record?
They have a great track record. And if you go to any of the APTA conferences or mobility conferences, they're there. In fact, a lot of agencies contact me to see how we have partnered with them and what the capabilities are. Recently, they have been awarded contracts with Pierce County and Kitsap Transit. So they're really extending, their services to other agencies. And with us, we have all of a majority of their devices, their CPLEDs, as well as their e-papers, so we can speak to both of those types of devices to several agencies. So they have a great track record, and even on the East Coast, I believe the state of Delaware has jumped on that for all e-papers in the state of Delaware.
And President Lewis, I would note that they are a tremendous partner for us. We have gone to them multiple times to say, how can we do this? And they will take it back, figure out a solution. They don't charge us, and then bring it back and deploy it. So, and there are countless times that we have seen this kind of partnership happen. So that is also one of the reasons why we want to continue this relationship. I would also just note that all of the e-papers that we have rolled out have happened over the past 2 years, 3 years. It's been a massive rollout trying to get people the information they need where they're at. So as people are wanting more, I just want to remind people that we've brought this entire agency a long way just in a few short years of bringing digital information to most of our MAX stations, as well as a number of bus stops. So.
Thank you. I believe Counterpoint was at the conference. I think, were they the one that had so they had our name on their banner on the DVD, DID screen of Better Red, and we all took a picture in front of it.
They were actually showing arrival times to
right.
a couple of our bus stops.
So, okay, I remember them now. Yeah,
there you go.
There we go. Okay.
And I would also, one other note that, and you're seeing in this picture here too, we're also utilizing, and they have not done this before, is advertising for some of the things that are happening on our system. Like you're seeing here, the Better Red opening, but low income fare. What are some of those other things that we can bring people's attention to across the system? And that was brand new. We went to them, and they're the ones who helped us develop it.
Excellent. And I think that would help answer Director Way's question as well. Thank you. Oh, gosh. Okay, enough with the picture. Any other questions for the gentleman? Okay, thank you. I will call for a vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Thank you.
Right on time. Where did you find that picture? Oh, talk about timing. Okay, now we'll move to number 4, Resolution 241061, authorizing a contract with Northwest Infrastructure LLC for construction manager, general contractor services for the Columbia Operations Facility, site preparation, and main distribution frame construction project. Mouthful. General Manager, do you have any comments on this resolution?
Thanks, President Lewis and members of the board. The property purchased on Northeast Columbia Boulevard in 2018 must be redeveloped to serve as our Columbia Operations Facility. And this facility is critical for TriMet's transition to a zero-emissions bus fleet. Initially, about 70 hydrogen fuel cell electric buses will be housed and maintained there. In its final configuration, Columbia is projected to be the home to more than 250 hydrogen fuel cell buses. There's much site preparation work that needs to be done, and a new 1,500 square foot main distribution frame building must be constructed to serve as the hub for all IT systems at the facility. Unused existing structures must be demolished and removed to make way for all of this. A map of the attached to is in the resolution that shows you the buildings that must come down. In June, the board authorized the exemption of this procurement from a low bid requirements, and TriMet used a best valued RFP to select Northwest Infrastructure, or NWI, as the CMCG or GC service contractor for this project. This resolution requests board approval for the CMGC contract and authorization for pre-construction services and an early work package totaling a bit less than $1 million. The funding is included in our engineering and construction division budget, FY 2025. TriMet will return to the board for further authorization after negotiating a total contract price. NWI has 13 employees, 77% of whom identify as minorities, and 10% are female. They are a COBIT certified contractor and a DBE and an MBE. And they intend to use DBEs for 75% of the construction work, and your approval of the resolution is recommended.
Thank you, General Manager. Before we turn to discussion, is there a motion to approve Resolution 241061?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second?
It's been moved and second. Do we have any comments, feedback from the board? Okay, seeing none, we will call for the vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Okay. All right, we come to our fifth resolution, 241062, authorizing a contract with Anchor QEA LLC for environmental support services for transit-related projects. General Manager, do you have any comments on this resolution?
Thanks, President Lewis and members of the board. The FTA, or the Federal Transit Administration, is experiencing a shortage of staff needed to review and approve Federal National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA, as we refer to it, documents. And completing a NEPA review is required so that all environmental issues are considered before federal funds may be committed to a project. The FTA's shortage of NEPA staff is due to overload, and there are just too many major projects under similar timelines requesting environmental review in Region 10 of the FTA, which includes Portland and Seattle. Under the Fixing America's Surface Transportation, or the FAST Act of 2015, transit districts are allowed to hire companies that can collaborate with the FTA staff on NEPA reviews. So FTA Region 10 Administrator has requested, Susan Fletcher, she has requested that TriMet continue providing staff assistance to ensure efficient review of local projects. These include the Interstate Bridge that we're working on, replacement program, also our 82nd Avenue Transit project that we're working on, and then a possible potential FX or frequent express line along TV Highway that's coming, and then there's others that's going to be with it as well. FTA approval of the NEPA documentation is required prior to the final engineering and release of federal funds for construction. This resolution authorizes a sole source contract with Anchor for an amount not to exceed $4 million over a 5-year period. A sole source contract is appropriate in this instance as Anchor has extensive experience in working with the Federal Transit Administration and especially Region 10, which is our region here on the West Coast, on NEPA document reviews. Anchor is also approved by the Federal Transit Administration and has no conflicts of interest in working with TriMet on projects in Region 10. Funding is included in TriMet's engineering and construction budget for FY25. Looking at diversity, Anchor has 555 employees, more than half of whom are women or minorities, and I recommend your approval.
Okay, is there a motion to approve Resolution 24-1062?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
It has been moved and second. Does anyone wish to comment? Board? Yes, Director Flowers.
Thank you, President Lewis. Just a quick question. How do we arrive at that $4 million figure? I understand it's a not to exceed figure, but I'm wondering, do we have an estimate on what we imagine this contract will end up being 5 years down the line? And just how did we set that threshold?
Appreciate that, Director Flowers. I'm going to bring forward our Senior Coordinator of Environmental Permits, Joe Recker. Also, Jeff, why don't you come on back up from procurement as well?
Yeah, it's okay.
Thank you. I'm Joe Recker. Director Flowers, to your question, this is an on-call type contract, so we're just allowing for additional authority beyond what we think we'll need. What we can project out over the next 2 years, we did get an estimate, and that was about $1.3 million. And that includes primarily the IBR project, but when we look out to other FX projects, we think that possibly even doubling that over 5 years would be appropriate.
So we're not just paying for expertise, we're also paying for timeliness then as well.
Yeah, absolutely. FTA staff is just overwhelmed, and what Anchor provides is an additional level of review that supplants and acts as an extension of FTA staff. So they're able to get to documents quickly, review them quickly, get them in front of FTA, what FTA staff are there, and make recommendations. So we do get some pretty good timeliness as well.
And then my only other question would be, do we possess any of that similar expertise in-house?
I'm the only NEPA person at TriMet, and what I do have access to are on-call consultants. So we have several on-calls that specialize in cultural resources, historic and archaeological resources that have been very helpful. We also have biologists on call, and pretty much the whole gamut of environmental services. Yeah.
Copy. And then one last question for you, I'm sorry. How many people roughly, how large of a team is typically required to fulfill the requirements of a NEPA process when we talk about all the different aspects of the work that you just mentioned?
Yeah, it definitely varies quite a bit. Most of the projects that we do in-house have been categorical exclusions, which are pretty typical, very basic, not a lot of controversy. Those we can do with limited on-call resources. But then IBR, interstate bridge replacement, I mean, that's a vast team of, there could be 100 people working on that. So it really varies between the class of action.
Thank you so much. Those are all my questions.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. Excellent questions. Others? Director Frisbee?
Thank you, President Lewis, and thank you, Director Flowers, for your questions. And team, hope you're getting your steps in. But I just wanted to comment. I will say I have a lot of feelings about this resolution and what it represents. I think it is absolutely the right choice in this moment, and appreciate the policy change and the FAST Act that allowed this to happen. Previous to this, we would have just been in a very long line of projects in front of Region 10, and it could have slowed down the project by years and added a lot to the cost. So I have some policy concerns about other components of that title in the FAST Act, but this is a good one. And my sort of two-piece comment on this is, one, I really hope, when you mentioned we hope we could see ourselves doubling this over the next 5 years, that is a sign that we are putting projects forward. And I love to hear that. So that brings some joy. Thank you. And I hope that we get to see you up here to expand and extend this contract. The sole source nature makes sense, given you basically need someone who sits in as a substitute FTA staff person for an extended period of time. So sole source makes sense in this. I can't let this moment go by without sort of pointing out that what this represents is a shifting of resources from public sector employees to private sector employees, which comes with added cost to the taxpayers and has some larger policy implications. So I always get a bit angsty. We are but a cog in that wheel. I do not think this is the moment for us to take a stand. And I am glad that this will help our projects move forward. So I just felt like we should comment and note that this is part of what is happening across the country and all of these projects. It is good because it lets the projects move forward. We care about the long-term function of the federal government, and to that perspective, this is a little bit of a red flag, but it's not one that we can solve. So, thank you.
Thank you, Director Frisbee. Director Kim?
Thank you. To comment on that, I 100% agree. My mind did wander about other smaller agencies and their projects that they're wanting to, that are in line. And then I reminded myself that I sit on the board of TriMet, and I support this resolution, and hopefully things will get better for all of us. So this is great. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Kim. Any other comments, questions from our board members? Okay. On that note, I will call for a vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Hearing and seeing none, motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen. Okay. On that note, I will be adjourning the business meeting for just a 5-10-minute break. I would like to again offer a warm welcome to our new board members. Thank you, and hopefully you want to stay on our team there. Yes. For your making it through your first board meeting. Thank you to everyone, and thank you again to the board for their excellent expertise. I greatly appreciate you. And on that note, I adjourn the business meeting. We will return for our board briefing in 10.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you, everyone, for returning. We'll now have a board briefing on the statewide Transportation Infrastructure Fund, also known as STIF, presented by Tom Mills. Welcome, Tom, and Director of Mobility Planning and Policy, and Debbie Gregg. Welcome, Debbie, Director of Grants. Welcome, Tom and Debbie. You have our full attention as we're munching on snacks. Okay.
Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. Today, Tom and I would like to present our 26-27 STIF plan. So just as a little bit of a background, this is the Statewide Transportation Improvement Fund, which was established in 2017. It is dedicated funding for improving, maintaining, and expanding public transportation for all users. I don't know if our slides. Perfect, great, thank you. And just a little background on the funds. The funds are actually derived from taxes paid by employers for payroll wages that are generated within our area. And the funds are allocated by Oregon Department of Transportation on a biennial basis or a 2-year basis. And then TriMet is the designated qualified entity for our Tri-County area. So we're responsible for overseeing the funds that come in, distributing those to our public transportation service providers and the counties that participate in the plan with us. So that's Clackamas, Multnomah, Washington, again, other transit providers, Portland Streetcar, and Ride Connection. So as we'll go over briefly, just our preliminary or draft 26-27 plan and the amounts. So as the QE, the board is the governing body that must approve the plan. So we plan to bring our final plan back in December for review and approval. The plan, again, is developed based on ODOT's revenue estimates. So we've received those estimates in August, and our understanding is that we are going to get another estimate at the end of this month that will incorporate, kind of finalize the numbers and bring that back to you in December. There's two basically funding streams for this STIF. The first one is the payroll-based formula funds. It's for broad transportation uses. Really the only exception is the light rail capital expenditures are not allowed under this formula plan. And then we do have STIF population-based formula funds. Those are specific for our older adults and our people with disabilities. Again, TriMet board is scheduled to review and adopt the plan when we come back in December. Our total plan is $196 million projected for all the projects, not only TriMet, but also our PTSPs, our counties, and our other providers. And again, this is effective over the biennium. So this will start July 1st, 2025, and then go through June 30th, 2027. So we have a little typo there. So for TriMet, in our payroll STIF formula revenues, those are projected to be on the far right column there, $120 million. And again, that's from ODOT's projections. ODOT has recommended that we do a 20% over projection on those revenues, just in case those revenues come in at a higher amount. ODOT's required to pay up to the plan. So if we didn't include those revenue projections and the revenues came in higher, they wouldn't be able to allocate it to us. And so we've put that in there as a little bit of a cushion to hopefully, if revenues come in, that we'll be able to then get those dollars and be able to use them towards some services. And then we do have a little bit of carryover, unspent, a little bit. We do have some carryover and unspent dollars that we're expecting for this biennium, about $35 million, and that brings our total TriMet plan to $180 million. Okay, I'll turn it over to Tom. He's going to talk about some of the services.
Thank you, Debbie, and thank you, President Lewis and TriMet Board for having us today. Yes, I'm going to go ahead and talk a little bit about how we plan to use these funds. And I want to also mention that we work with an advisory committee. The STIF legislation requires that we have an advisory committee. That committee is called the HB 2017 Transit Advisory Committee. It's made up of 25 members throughout the Tri-County area. We are required to have representatives for people who earn low incomes, for older adults, people with disabilities, as well as other transit providers. And then we go over and above that to include even more members. And in fact, I would point out that in earlier iterations of this board of directors, we actually, they designated that we have a representative of each of your districts, a citizen representative from each of your districts. So that is included in our committee as well. So as you see here in the pie chart, oh, I'm sorry, if we can go back real quick. As you see here in the pie chart, the lion's share of the funds we are recommending get dedicated to fixed route service. That's both expanding new fixed route service in new areas or new frequencies, but also, as Director Kim had mentioned earlier, regrettably, we do need to dedicate some of these funds, a good portion of these funds, towards maintaining our existing services because the federal funds to kind of help cover the loss in revenue as a result of COVID have dried up, and so this is kind of helping fill the gap. And then you see some funds for lift vehicles, regional coordination, I'll explain that in a minute, Portland Streetcar, Human Services, STIF administration, because as Debbie mentioned, there is a lot of work that we do to administer these funds, conduct compliance, et cetera. Fare programs and student fare. One thing I will real quickly note, for those of you who've been through this process with us a few times, there's really only one capital project, and that's a capital purchase of lift vehicles. And the reason for that this time is what we've found over the years is capital purchases and capital projects, when you're building something, can be subject to delays. And the STIF legislation only allows us to spend the money on the projects that are in the plan. So if we say we're going to spend, say, $1 million on electric bus upgrade, and that electric bus upgrade is caught up in permitting delays and things like that, we cannot shift that $1 million to another project, or if we can, it's very, very difficult. And so what we're trying to do this time around is really focus our plan on those projects that we know we're going to spend down, so we don't have those large amounts of carryover in the future. So, next slide, please. So getting into more detail, fixed route service, we are planning to spend $126.8 million on fixed route. Again, that will be expanding service, it will be preserving service. It will both go to bus operations as well as MAX operations. Next slide. And $22.6 million on subsidized fare programs. These are the programs that provide honored citizen passes for people who qualify for honored citizen based on income, based on their military status, either active duty or veteran status. This program also pays for the youth summer pass, as well as pass programs where we provide passes or either fully funded passes or subsidized fare to organizations that then provide it to their clients. Next slide, please. The STIF legislation requires that we dedicate at least 1% of our funds towards student transportation programs. Our committee and TriMet in general have designated fares as being our effort to do that. So this provides student fares for students from families that earn low incomes. This does not include Portland Public Schools. Portland Public Schools is funded on a different fare program. So this includes all the other school districts in the region except Portland Public Schools. Next slide. As I mentioned, this is the first time we have chosen to purchase lift vehicles. As Eileen could tell you, we have a number of lift vehicles that have reached their useful life, and of course every year there's a new set of vehicles that reach their useful life. So we want to dedicate some funds, and we know that these vehicles we can purchase and get them in a time in the 2-year period that we expect to and be able to replace those vehicles. Next slide. Regional coordination. So there are a couple parts of the legislation that talk about making it easier for people to travel between districts, as well as access the transit system from kind of further flung areas. And so the way we handle that is we provide funds to the counties to operate. There's really two things we do. One is we provide funding to the counties to operate shuttles, first and last mile shuttles in areas that TriMet doesn't serve today, as well as some funding to other transit districts outside the TriMet district. In this case, it's SMART in Wilsonville and Sandy Area Metro in Sandy, Oregon, to operate their service into the TriMet district. So that is how we address regional coordination, and we're recommending dedicating $14.7 million towards that. Next slide. Portland Streetcar. Portland Streetcar is also a transit provider in the region, and so because of that, we dedicate $6 million per biennium for them to operate streetcar service. Next slide. Human services. So earlier, Debbie had mentioned that there are two kind of pots of fund. One is the STIF payroll-based formula funds, and that's really what we're talking about here. There's another pot of funds called the STIF population-based formula funds, which is dedicated towards transportation services for older adults and people with disabilities. Many years ago, we'll say 7 years ago, when the committee was advising us on this, they said, hey, we want to bolster that pot of money for transportation services for older adults and people with disabilities. We want to take some of our payroll-based formula and add it to the population-based formula. So that is what this is doing. So we add this $4 million to the population-based formula funds, which I'll talk about in future slides here. Next slide. STIF administration, so the administration work that we have to do on this program is not just developing the plan and managing the committee, but we receive the funds for the entire three-county area. We have to have develop contracts with all the counties, all the other transit providers. We have to disperse that money, and we have to conduct compliance on them as well. So it's a lot of work, a lot of Debbie's team has to do. And so we're going to dedicate $1.1 million towards that. Next slide. So here is just a totaling of all of it. It comes for TriMet's share of STIF. It comes to $180 million. Next slide. So I mentioned the areas outside the TriMet district. So again, we receive the money for the entire three-county area, but of course TriMet doesn't encompass the entire tri-county area. So money that's generated outside the TriMet district, we receive it and then we pass it on to those other entities. So you'll see here Clackamas County, Multnomah County, Washington County, and then you see the 4 transit providers in Clackamas County as well. Now, you might say, wow, Multnomah County doesn't really get very much. That's because TriMet encompasses most of Multnomah County, or at least developed Multnomah County, right? There are parts of the gorge that, are not included. Same with Washington County. TriMet encompasses a large portion of developed Washington County, which is why that slice of the pie is so much smaller than all the Clackamas slices. Next slide, please. And when you add that up, that will total to $6 million that will be passed through to areas outside the TriMet district. And then the last bit I want to mention is about the STIF population-based revenues. Again, these are the revenues that go towards transportation programs for older adults and people with disabilities. So there's $10 million in STIF population revenues. We are also going to add that $4 million. So that's $14 million. And in addition to that, the state has federal 5310 money. That's $7.5 million. It's not part of STIF, but we add that to the process. So altogether, we're going to be allocating about $21 million in funding for transportation for older adults and people with disabilities. That process is conducted by a committee called the Accessible Transportation Funds Advisory Committee. Some of you who were here a few months ago remember we changed their name. They used to be called Special Transportation Funds Advisory Committee. That is a solicitation process where projects apply for funds, and we try to fund as many of them as we can. Sometimes it's kind of a mix of scoring, but also kind of spreading the peanut butter. You know, we do the scores, but we say, okay, well, who can take a cut to, you know, let this program get by? So that process is happening now. In fact, we have a 1 o'clock meeting today, and by our December meeting, we will have that all sorted out, and those projects will be included in the entire STIF plan. And then lastly, we will be coming to you in December asking for you to, well, I should back up. In November, the advisory committee will be voting to approve the STIF plan, and then we will bring it to you in December asking you to adopt the STIF plan. And then it's due to ODOT in mid-January.
Great. We'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Oh, lots of questions. Let's start on my right. Okay, Director Graham, and then Director Way, and then Director Frisbee.
Thank you so much. This was really informative. I had two questions that came to mind as you were presenting. One is I'm curious as to what the carry forward from the previous biennium was originally intended to be spent on, and why that wasn't spent. And my second question is, could you elaborate on the process that you go through if the 20% additional projection is not reached and you have to make cuts to the proposed budget?
I can field the carryover.
Okay,
question.
you want to do that?
Yeah.
I'll do the other one.
Yeah. Love this tag team effort. So the carryover is due to a couple things. So the STIF plan does allow us to put in almost like a reserve for future costs. And about 17 million was in the current STIF plan for battery electric buses for our FY26 or beyond build year. And so those funds we've set aside. And so there's about 17 million in that carryover that we plan to use for battery electric buses in the future. And then another 10 million was due to the Columbia Operations Facility. There was actually some other funding that was used instead of what was set aside in our current plan for that infrastructure. And so it's displacing, those funds displace this. And so we're gonna park those and use those as part of our plan for the 26-27 and incorporate that into some services and things to provide.
Oh, sorry.
20% overage.
Thank you. Thank you. I was so engrossed with what you were saying. The 20% overage, the way we handle it is because we're doing such a big service amount, the 20% is in that service. So obviously we have other funds that pay for service. And if they don't come in, then the other funds will absorb them. If they do come in, then that will displace those general funds for something else.
Thank you. This is also just really informative. You know, I know just the importance of STIF, right, and reaching all of our different writers and communities. So I do have a couple of questions regarding the regional transportation, that percentage, and I'm, District 7, Clackamas County, which is a wide swath of lots of cities and again, lots of other, smaller regional partners that we work with to provide transportation in areas that we can't go to with, thank you, that pie. So with this particular connection or relationship that we have with these additional transit providers, are we looking at their metrics or their data in terms of their ridership and like who they're serving? Like, do we or ODOT, just because I want to just be able to better understand, like who are these riders and are we fully like maximizing, this partnership and this relationship that we have with them in order to spend down our dollars?
Yeah, great question. Okay, if I Take it? Okay. Actually, this slide is showing their payroll-based formula funds. It's not the regional coordination funds. So these are dollars that are raised in their area. They have a right to them. The regional coordination, we choose to give to them. But in both cases, they are required to submit quarterly reports to ODOT. Really, again, they submit them to us, and then we submit them to ODOT. And so we do are able to track their, how many rides they're picking up, how many vehicle miles, how many vehicle hours, all that kind of data on it. With regional coordination, it's kind of twofold. So there are actually a few regional coordination shuttle projects that we are showing in the Forward Together plan as eventually becoming TriMet buses. And in fact, this past August, the shuttle it'll stop at the end of the year, but there is something called the Swan Island shuttle. That's going to sunset at the beginning of the year because we're now extended all-day service. So in some cases, these regional coordination shuttles are kind of proving the market for us, which is really exciting. In other cases, the shuttles really are never operate in an area where there is demand, but really not enough demand for us to be able to cost effectively serve it. And so in a way, the purpose for them is to serve an area that is always going to be lower ridership, yet there is interest for service there.
Got it. Thank you. And then just my next question, this is the only one I have left, is around the youth, the 1% dedicated funding for the youth passes. So that's baked in the law, right, or in the statute. Is there any opportunity to increase that percentage?
As you know, that would be at the legislative level. So there is a transportation package that will be discussed at the upcoming legislative session.
Great. Do you know if we're hearing anything just from the committees that we're sitting on with riders or youth who might be serving on those committees, if there is an appetite to increase that in our service districts where we're not currently providing this?
We have a representative who's representing the Hillsborough Schools Foundation. That's kind of our school representative. I will say that person is not a student, but that person hasn't advocated for more funding to go to student fare programs. So I haven't heard that.
Got it. Thank you. I just ask because I've heard over the last several years, just from advocates and organizations who serve youth or various school districts that this is great. The 1% is super helpful. As many folks know, transportation and access to public transportation is a barrier for a lot of our middle and high school students. And so there's a growing need from kind of where I sit with, responding to folks on either school districts or just, down to youth who are kind of feeling like, we could potentially be, doing more to kind of better serve their needs. So, this is good information, and also just knowing that, at the end of the day, it is the legislature who, makes these decisions with these percentages, but, anything that we can do to also, help provide, right, I think that support, would be a win-win, right? Yeah. As we're increasing ridership, as we're, making public transit a part of young people's experiences in our region, the more that we can do, I think it's a win-win for all of us.
Thank you. I wanted to follow up with a couple comments, and I appreciate that presentation. This is a short presentation that represents a lot of work, and so I just want to take a moment and acknowledge that, and I appreciate the two of you and the lots of other folks who have been a part of this process. I will say I've heard from a lot of our regional partners in this process, and I think there has been some frustration, as there always is when we are handing out money. but particularly around lack of clarity around what's driving decision-making and what the timing is. And so I will just say, it's not directed at either of you at all, but to the extent that we can make sure our partners all feel a little more confident in the sort of the process, I think that often helps smooth some of the outcome challenges. You know that. I'm just going to speak that out into the universe. The two pieces that I did want to flag, just one tiny correction, because I know it does make some people mad, is this is both a employer payroll tax, but it is also an employee payroll tax. And that does matter in this conversation, so I will highlight that. I had two questions. One, our administrative costs, is that roughly aligned with what we see with QEs across the state? I would guess that we have more regional partners we have to coordinate with. So I guess rather than being aligned, the better question is it proportional? And then my second question, I know there is a regional community connections plan being worked on, and I'm curious to what extent that might help this process next time around in terms of creating clear priorities and ways of engaging that maybe help guide this next time.
Do you want to speak to the admin?
Yeah.
I guess? Okay. Yeah, I'm not quite sure. Thank you, Director, for your question. I'm not quite sure of the other QEs and their administration. We could definitely find that out and bring that back and to see if it's proportional, because we have that information. It's all reported up to ODOT, so we can definitely grab that information. Definitely, there's a couple things, yeah, with the administrative level. Again, yes, there's quarterly reporting. There's, the money coming in, the accounting for it. Yes, the reporting, the money going out. And then just the day-to-day questions and everything like that we field and the development of the plan. And then we also, I believe, we have a consultant that does some work for us too on the front end to help us with some of the disbursement factors and things to all the different regions and everything like that. So it's in line with what we're planning to expend for the current biennium, the current plan we're in. So it's on track for that. I wasn't sure, was there a follow-up, anything with the administration?
No.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so.
I do too. I concur.
Well, it's actually Metro's wheelhouse. So Metro is leading a project called the Community Connections Plan, and it is to kind of look at the possibility of kind of expanding the number of these kind of first and last mile shuttles around the region. I'm told that plan, though, will not provide a funding source or recommend a funding source or a timeline. So, I think it's a great exercise in trying to kind of identify areas that either are, probably won't have enough riders for TriMet service. Also areas that maybe where we may prove the market and a shuttle may actually help bring a market for TriMet to take over at some point. And so I think that's really what we're going to get out of that process. Where we go from there is still to be determined.
Thank you.
Thank you. Director Flowers?
Yeah, thank you so much, Tom and Debbie. Just a quick follow-up on Director Way's questions. To make sure I'm understanding correctly, when you're talking about that 1% that is allocated towards the student fare program, the legislature simply mandates a minimum, correct?
That's correct.
But there's no ceiling on a maximum. Is that right? I feel like that would probably change the tenor of your response to her question, given that we could, if we so choose, if I'm understanding correctly, reallocate funding from any of these other buckets to increase that percentage point that we're mandated to provide at minimum.
That's correct. It is a minimum of 1%. And I guess I would say that I guess we probably exceed that in that we offer a summer pass program, which is hidden in that other pie chart where I was showing all the fare programs or all the other fare programs. So one might say we actually exceeded.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Tom or Debbie? Okay, seeing none, thank you very much for the presentation.
And you're going to make your 1 o'clock
And we, yeah, yes, thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
And we are done for the day.